Welcome to Fauji Days. We have today with us a person of multifaceted achievements and a lot of skills. He is a journalist, a historian, an author, a filmmaker, a photographer, and a conservationist, among other things. He has flown hundreds of fighter sorties, he has been on submarines, and he has even been underground with the Hizbul Mujahideen. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Shiv Kunal Verma.
Thank you, Pankaj. It's always a pleasure.
Kunal, thank you for gracing Fauji Days with your presence. Since it would be impossible to cover your life experience in a single episode, today I would like to focus on your work as a war correspondent and a journalist. 24 years ago, you were covering the Kargil War from the air and from the front lines. You were with the divisional commanders, you were with the soldiers, with the junior leadership. You have written about this in your recently launched autobiography, Hindustani. But I would like you to tell our viewers firsthand how you decided to enter into a conflict zone and how did you manage to cover it?
Firstly, great to be with you on this show. I always enjoy being here.
Sure.
Well, as you know, Pankaj, in the 1990s, after having shot Project Tiger and everything, me and my partner at that time, Dipti, we decided to shoot for the main focus was on the armed forces.
Yes.
I shot Salt of the Earth, which was, we were very fortunate to be given that film to do because it marked the 60th year of the Air Force.
Right.
And Air Chief Marshal Nimi Suri was the Air Chief. And he said, I'll give you everything you want, but don't ask me for any money.
Right.
Well, luckily for me, JRD Tata very graciously stepped in and the Tatas came in. And we asked for 21 lakhs, which was a hell of a figure in 1992.
Wow.
And he gave us that. And then we went ahead and shot that film. It gave me a frontline view of exactly what fighter flying all was about, what combat from the air was, etc., etc. And that film was very interesting to do, and it was great fun. And we shot it on 16 mm, which was like very, very difficult to do, not unlike video.
Yeah.
Which we shot Akash Odha later in 2001. It was video.
Okay.
Immediately after Salt of the Earth, we were asked by the Navy to make their history, and completely different world, and from blues we were into whites, and it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it gave me the second dimension. And then, believe it or not, the army got involved. We started shooting this whole series called Green Flash.
Yes.
I was actually in the valley for almost 34 days shooting the first episode.
Okay.
That is the time I had actually gone across and spent some time with one of the Hizbul Mujahideen units, etc. I was there for 3-4 days.
Yes.
In fact, the way Saddam Hussein was dug out of that thing, I've actually been inside a hut. Inside, despite my sights, I was hammered into that.
Okay.
With the army actually searching and bayonets being probed and stuff like that.
Wow.
It was very scary. Had they found us, they would have shot us.
Okay.
They didn't know. I mean, the troops don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So my experience with the three services had been absolutely tremendous.
Right.
And in fact, I think I was born with somebody's hand on my head because you don't get these kind of opportunities.
Yes.
My father was in the army, so I had kind of grown up in that environment. I knew quite a bit about the armed forces, and that helped.
Right.
Seamlessly get into this whole thing.
Right.
When the war broke out in 1999, two things happened which influenced my shooting the Kargil film.
Okay.
One, I was getting more and more into the geopolitical aspect of warfare also.
Okay.
In fact, I later wrote this book, Long Road to Siachen,
Yes.
where I have talked about all these things. Long Road to Siachen is actually a spin-off of a film we wanted to make in 1998.
Okay.
Called Airfield called Gilgit. And I think if you understand geopolitics, the title itself will give you an idea of what the hell we were trying to do.
Yes.
Because in my opinion, and I have maintained this through the book, it's not an India-Pakistan problem. We actually do not have a problem with Pakistan if you really get down to the basics of the whole thing.
Yeah.
This was a pure, we all know, I mean, the British divide and rule, great game, but just how diabolical it was.
Yes.
We don't realize it.
Right.
And they played us like fish.
Okay.
And we like idiots.
When you say they, you refer
the British,
to
the British.
The British.
The British game plan was very simple.
Yeah.
They were looking at the oil fields in Iran, Persia, and they were looking at the oil fields in Iraq.
Okay.
And they were looking at also Bahrain. Because Bahrain was at that time one of the major refueling stops for the RAF and for the, so oil was the main issue at that time. Because coal had now become something of the past and it was all about oil now.
Correct.
were very clear.
Yeah.
After World War One,
Yeah.
it's there in the book
Yeah.
when I talk about it. They had actually worked out the division of India.
Okay.
Because very few people know this, that World War One was when the Indian troops fought there. We had, the combined Indian casualties in World War One and World War Two are 4 million.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know the combined casualties of the French and the British in World War One and World War Two? Take a random guess.
Fraction of that?
3.5 million.
Okay.
Okay, the Russians are 21 million, so they kind of overwhelmingly go there.
Right.
But our contribution in World War One and World War Two has not really been understood.
Yeah.
It was tremendous. The British couldn't have won this thing without Indian troops. Not only Indian troops, even Indian support.
Right.
The RAF we had 8 RIAF squadrons. We tend to talk about those.
Yes.
But the RAF itself, entirely funded, mostly funded. I won't say entirely, mostly funded by our own provinces and princely states.
That is true.
I mean, here you have Battle of Britain guys flying with Bombay and city of Bombay, and it's Jang Bahadur and all that kind of stuff. So our contribution to the war was tremendous.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what happened was that when we came back, and now let's go back to what I know I'm digressing a bit from Kargil, but this is important to understand.
Leading to Kargil. Yes.
When the Indian troops came back to this place, to India, they had been told that you are fighting for king and country.
That's right.
But country, it was alluded
right.
that you will be given home rule.
Right.
They were not talking about independence. Even the Congress at its best was only talking about home rule, right?
Yeah.
So when they came back, they expected some sort of we have massive casualties. In fact, it's the Garhwalis who broke the trench warfare system itself. So the Indian contribution, fantastic. When we came back, 2 things happened in 1919. There was the War Office and the Colonial Office.
Yeah.
The War Office was MI5 as the precursor of MI5, and the Colonial Office was the precursor of MI6.
Right.
These guys were thinking at a level which was in the stratosphere, and we were like, understandably, Indian politicians at that time, the leaders at that time, they didn't even have a clue about the whole subcontinent, because if you were sitting in Visakhapatnam, or if you were sitting in Orissa, or if you were sitting in Bombay, your worldview was limited to what you could see.
Yes.
So it would be unfair to actually expect them to really understand geopolitics. But what was going on was a very sinister kind of a thing which was happening.
Yeah.
Now, 2 things happened in 1919, I said. One was they worked out the Colonial Office. There was a guy called Colonel Mindeja.
Okay.
He worked out a plan for the division of India. He said, once you give them home rule, independence is the next step. If that happens, what happens to British interests? What the hell happens to the oil fields, etc., etc.?
Absolutely.
So he said, we have to divide the whole damn thing. And we will divide it between Hindustan, Pakistan, and Princestan.
Right.
Now, our history tells us that Pakistan was only coined in 1930s, in the second round table conference. This is rubbish. It's there in that. It's there in that document. Then immediately after that, Jallianwala Bagh happened in Punjab, and the Rawlett Act, and this happened, and that happened.
Yes.
So all this went out of the window.
Right.
And then comes, a lot of things happened between World War One and World War Two. Yes. Including the fact that Jinnah left India. He had given up. He was sick of being mistreated and stuff like that. And he was being mistreated by some of our very, very senior leaders at that time.
Yeah.
So he kind of said, I don't want to get into this. So he went off to England. The moment he landed in England, he was recruited. He was recruited by Churchill.
Okay.
And Churchill's secretary was his handler, a lady called Judith or Judy or something like that.
Okay.
And what I've said in my book, Long Road to Siachen, has actually been ratified even by the Vice Chancellor of Karachi University. And subsequently, a lot of documents have come out which proves what I was saying.
Okay.
My book was published in 2010.
Right.
Now we come to, so we've got this entire build-up. And when we, this entire plan was actually rejected by the House of Lords.
Okay.
They said, no. The British like to give you that impression, give me play cricket. All right, we're fair, like hell they are. Okay, cricket is fine so long as they're winning. Okay,
correct.
You come into the equation, you add it.
Yeah.
Now, what they've done in 1947 is they've simply taken that plan. Ratcliffe hadn't a bloody clue.
Yeah.
He was sent here by Churchill. You go and implement this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Churchill, that Mountbatten, who had been sent there and replaced, Wavell had refused to implement. when they sent this guy, he said, I can't do it in such a short period.
Yeah.
So they sent Mountbatten.
Yeah.
Mountbatten was Churchill's nephew.
Okay.
Churchill never forgave him for this. He never spoke to Mountbatten because Mountbatten got influenced by Nehru to some extent. And वो गुरदासपुर का जो उन्होंने गड़बड़ किया था, which led to the, from गड़बड़ meaning from the Pakistani perspective, which led to the whole conflict, right?
Yeah.
And that thing continued to simmer. I mean, you know what happened.
Yes.
The raiders, this,
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Pakistan had to, when Jinnah got it, and the British did not give him the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah.
He called it a moth-eaten Pakistan.
Yes, he did.
Right? So what was he referring to? Now you got all this happening. Okay. Now we come to 1999. By this time, since 1992, I've been shooting with all the three services and having a ball.
Correct.
Right. When the war broke out, I was in Kulu. My father was there.
Okay.
And my mother, my father, both were there. And I had just moved up.
Your father had retired from the
my dad
army
had, my dad had retired in 1991.
Major General Shiv Kunal Verma.
Yeah. Yes. So I was there, and then the Kargil War happened.
Right.
You could see all the AN-32s going overhead and truckloads of troops moving up and stuff like that. All that was going on.
Yes.
I was watching that, and my younger daughter was barely a year old.
Okay.
The one was 4. I had a steam car. So 2-3 hafte to for about a week or so I stayed here, but it was just too much for me. I was just boiling up. I needed to get out there because I had shot with all these guys here. So I bundled my family into a car and we came back to Gurgaon. We were in Beverly Park.
Yeah.
I went to air headquarters and I said, listen guys, I mean, you know, I've flown with you and you're hitting targets and stuff like that. And I know exactly what's going on. What are the limitations? Let me go there, let me film the targets.
Right.
So you can't, 10 kilometers from the LOC, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we said, so they were very enthusiastic. With all the stuff going on in the Kargil War, they were running around with my files. And they got them cleared.
Okay.
All right. Now, Destiny stepped in.
Yeah.
Actually, they sent an AN-32 from Agra.
Okay.
The 3 guys. I had 1 assistant
Okay.
with me. And camera nahi mil raha tha. Nobody was willing to go here. Finally, I camera guys who used to not think twice. You paid them $1,500, $2,000 a day. They gave you the camera. Kargil ja rahe ho, aap nahi denge hamara camera ka kya hoga.
Yeah.
I'm telling them national district and they couldn't get. They said, sorry.
Yeah.
And I needed a digibeta camera.
Yeah.
So when I was taking off, I was actually recalled at Palam and I was asked to see the air chief, who asked me a very loaded question. He said, when you're filming, what angle of attack will you go in at?
Yeah.
So I unfortunately knew too much at that moment. I should have just told him some bullshit and got away with it. But I actually talked about the right attack. So, to film, if you go over 3G, you can't shoot. The camera lands up in your lap.
The gravity.
Because my body weight right now is 1G.
Yeah.
You're 1G.
Yes.
In a fighter, when you say 2G, 3G, 4G, you go up to 9G.
Yes.
I'm 100 kg, I become 1 ton. Yeah.
That's right.
Your specs will break your nose.
Correct.
It's that kind of pain and everything happens.
Yeah.
So he asked me a question and I answered him. So he said, I've already lost 2 aircraft. Nichiketa has been shot down. Ahuja has been shot down. And I can't lose another aircraft. And I lost the helicopter also. We lost the B-17 at Tololu.
Yes.
I actually looked at him. I said, Chief Marshal Tipton, wonderful man. I said, so what are you doing? He said, war on. If we get shot down, we get shot down. Hello, they gave me a lecture about dying for your country and all that. I had no intention of dying for anybody. I just said, hang on a minute, I'm just going there to shoot this. Anyway, cut a long story short, he said no. But when he said no, he said, no, we'll do this after the war. It's too risky and you can't be going around shooting this and all that. But and then suddenly there was a war on here, so everybody shot off to their room. I left high and dry. I was in flying overall, then I didn't know what to do here. So I came down and there was Brigadier Williams, that time colonel, from the MI.
Okay.
So he says, so Kunal, Air Force has done its usual act, they pulled out. I said, he used something more stronger than that.
Okay.
So I don't want to say that on camera.
Right.
So I said, ha. So he said, yeah, you still go.
Acha.
So he said, can you go? We'll take a there were no commercial flights, nothing was happening.
Yeah.
So I said, nobody would have thought of standing that AN-32 down. So he said, I'll drop you there. I said, chalo. So I went in and Jonga. Everybody saluted at the gate and all, military gadi. Other guy, I told the pilots every 1 hour, get a flight plan.
Okay.
As soon as and those boys had come from Agra, they were the further you are from a war, the worse it looks. So they were nervous. Shower, are you? Come on, let's go. Got into the aircraft, shut the hatches, took off. And at Banihal, we had 2 MiG-21s come up and escort us in, and we landed. And 51 Squadron ke mixed there. We landed and this guy turns at the top of the runway. These guys were dying to get back to Agra. He said, there's a war. I think, yeah, relax. Nothing is happening in Srinagar. हमको वहाँ छोड़ दिया. Runway के ऊपर. Cameras के साथ. Srinagar is the most dangerous airfield in the world. I mean, you know, security there. I'm telling my assistant, just don't do anything stupid. We didn't know where to go. Then we saw one jeep coming from the other side. Luckily, it came from the Air Force Station. 51 Squadron. Tiny was commanding Tandon was commanding the squad. Okay. So Gorkha Zawadi comes and he stops at a safe distance, 25 meters away. Gets out, plays it safe, salutes. And he says, Shab, aap India ka hai ki Pakistan ka hai?
Good question. Good question to ask you at that point.
You know, at that moment, come on, you idiot, pick up my bag, let's move and all you. So anyway, I got there and then the army got the helicopter sanctions, etc. And the way I looked at it was, I'd shot with these guys at peacetime.
Yes.
Inside out. And I felt I had something to contribute. So I went. Nobody paid me for it. I got no money for it. I in fact, spent a lot of my own money. And once I was there, initially after crossing Zojila, it took a few days for the helicopter sanctions to come, but I moved up by road, not by chopper.
Okay.
And initially, I went to, after Zojila is Gumri, and after Gumri used to come where the advanced medical thing was.
Yeah.
Casualties were coming in, somebody's leg gone, hand gone. It was very scary. And then we moved from Gumri to Mughalpura.
Okay.
That was the headquarters of 8 Mountain Division. So there, the Colonel GS, he looked at me and he said, who are you? And I suddenly realized I had no papers, nothing.
Okay.
So he said, so I said, well, I'm so. Yeah, sit down, you know. So almost like under arrest. And luckily I knew Mohinder Puri. And he had gone for a walk.
The GOC.
Yeah. And he arrived in his tracksuit and he looked at me, oh, hello Kunal, how are you? The moment he said that, from being under arrest, I was given a cup of tea and all that. And then I spent some time with him.
Okay.
And then from there, I moved to Kargil, to Drass, 56th Brigade. And there was a lot of action going on because that's right at the base of Tiger Hill. And boom, boom, bam, bam, and buffers firing and 105s firing and 130s toward Patalik. When we went that side, they were in action.
Right.
Rockets being fired, heavy mortars in the Mashko Valley.
Okay.
So I was filming all that, and it was quite a. Now what happened was when the helicopter sanction came, because the army in the meantime had pushed it through.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Defence, with its wonderful logic, insisted that I can only fly in a chopper if there's a brigadier or a major general present.
Okay.
So as a result of that, and I used to fly with my doors open. So a chopper would come from, they used to keep the helicopters at Mughalpura.
Okay.
So they used to fly and cross Zojila, come in the morning. So the first thing I do is say, take the doors off. So 10-15 minutes, 10 minutes to नहीं, 3-4 minutes लगते हैं उनको दरवाजा निकालने में.
Okay.
And then General Badwar Viru, another wonderful man.
He was another division commander.
He was commanding 3 infantry division.
3 infantry division.
So both of us would take off. Go to Chorbatla, go to 70 Brigade was fighting the battle at Ganasok. For which you had to fly into Batalik, get to Da, from Da go up to Yaldor and all that, up that narrow valley, land at Ganasok. And the conditions were horrific, but I was filming it and I was being, literally punched into wherever there was action. It was fantastic. So I shot that. And when I came back to Delhi, I had all the footage.
Yeah.
I was shooting it myself.
Yeah.
So when I came back to Delhi, every channel wanted it, right? So they went to the army and said, "Humko do footage." And the army would say, "We can't give it to you because it doesn't belong to us. Go to Kunal."
Yeah.
So they would come to me. Now whether it was BBC, CNN, everyone, right? It's the same story.
Correct.
Anita Pratap from CNN, this one and the other. They would come and say, "Please give us the footage." So I'll give it to you. Take what you want. Free of cost. Le lo.
Okay.
All right. But I have a rider. I want to see what the hell are you reporting. If you say things like India occupied Pakistan, Kashmir, go to hell, I'm not giving it to you. So it became, had the army done that, they would have said censorship. But in my case, I could do what I wanted. And I used to tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not giving it to you. Not giving it to you. You can say what you want to me. So in a way, we actually landed up controlling the entire narrative of the war.
Oh, I see.
What was being put out.
Yes.
And interestingly, I also shot with the POWs later.
The prisoner of wars.
Yeah. There were 8 of them.
Okay.
And again, the army came to me and said, it'll take us 2 hours. We've got 8 POWs. Pakistan is not acknowledging them.
They are not owning them up.
So if you talk to them, so hum gaye wahan pe. So 4 were kept at the base hospital. And 4 were at the Rajarif Center.
Okay.
Now, when we went to the base hospital, it was raining outside. I still remember. And Williams was with me, and I used to smoke in those days. So I was standing in the corridor and smoking a cigarette, and I was getting a little put off because I found that all the 4 Pakistani soldiers, they were ORs, had been put in the Major General's ward.
Oh, okay.
And they put the Quran next to them and flowers, and the prettiest nurses are hovering around and all that kind of stuff. And when the base hospital, one of the senior officers came, I told him, I said, this is just not on here. And in fact, we had a bit of an exchange of words, but I insisted. I said, take it out, put them back to the general ward. And then the army started telling these Pakistani, and most of them were blind because they were snow blind and all that. The snow blind, their eyes were covered with cotton and all that. So they said, ki, Saab Red Cross se aaye hain, aapse baat karenge. I told them, bullshit, I'm not here from Red Cross. First thing I told them was, I'm not here from Red Cross. I'm not even here from the army. I'm just shooting this. And I'm going to put this on international television because your country is not recognizing it.
Okay.
Now, you talk to me if you want. There's no pressure on you. But if you lie, it strengthens your country's hand.
Right.
And they started to open up. मैं 5 channel like हूँ, मेरा ये हो रहा था, मैं
So they were all Pakistani regulars.
Well, there was one guy from 22 Punjab. There was one more chap who was a regular. Otherwise, they were all regular. LLI is regular. It's just that they are the Northern Light Infantry.
Yeah.
Wonderful guys. Wonderful guys. They're like Ladakh Scouts. In fact, थोड़ा सा वो जो बाल्टिस्तान का जो influence आ जाता है ना इनपे, very fair, and they're beyond Skadu. They call it Sakardu, and it was incredible. And it took us the whole day. And those other guys, the POWs, went way into the night. And I'll narrate the last. There was one guy, bullet-shaped head. I think he was either 22 Punjab or he was one of those units. Okay. Oh no, sorry, he was also NLI. But he hadn't cracked under when they had asked questions, interrogation, and उससे कुछ नहीं बोला था. And while I was filming, I had a whole lot of these guys who were colonels and all who were writing down every word.
I see.
When I was telling them it's on film, why are you writing it down?
Exactly.
But they said, Danny, sir, our job is this. And they would sit in the shadows and the lights were on me. And this guy couldn't see because he had a light on him. So yeah, and I'm going to bola tha, we've also tired. We've done 7 guys. We've been at it for almost 24 hours. Not 24 hours. Yeah, almost 24. So there was a green table, a table with a green cloth. And one of those tin ashtrays. Typical army ones, you can remember those.
Yeah.
And I'd run out of cigarettes. So I told everybody, find me a fag. So they brought me a Charminar. They didn't particularly like. Okay. So I lit this cigarette, and this guy came in, and he was in Kutta chains and all that. They had him tied like that with an SLR. We grab a weapon.
Yeah.
So first thing I told the guard, I said, "Khol do isko." So I अपना ऐसे हाथ rub कर रहा था because of the.
Yeah.
And he sat down opposite me.
Yeah.
And I kept looking at him. I didn't say anything. I had the camera behind me, but I hadn't yet switched it on. So I lit that cigarette. I kept looking at him, and I took a long pull at it, and I offered it to him. A small gesture, but I offered him that cigarette. So he took it. I just, they hold the cigarette like this.
Okay.
Chillam style.
Yeah.
So he took a long pull at it, and he started to choke. Khaw. So वो खांसने लगा, उसने वो cigarette उठा के वो ऐसे पे रख दी थी. वो खांसने में I didn't move. I told everybody just let him choke. Doesn't matter. So while he was coughing, I picked up that cigarette and took another drag from it. When I did that, this man's eyes actually, I could see it. They widened a little bit.
Okay.
When I took that second pull after he had smoked it, and then he got up abruptly and his chair fell. Okay, mind you, at this point the cameras were on.
Okay.
And his chair fell. And when the chair fell, the guard started to raise his SLR. So I signaled him, I said, just wait. So he comes, he left the frame of the camera. He came out. I was wearing khaki trousers. He sank to the ground. He put his head on my lap.
Okay.
And he started to sob.
Oh.
Bullet-shaped head, the toughest guy out of those 8 fellows. He was sobbing like a baby. The Indian government, I think, did a very sensible thing.
Okay.
They did not try to put any restrictions.
Okay.
Jisko jana hai, jao. War has no place in society. You see dead bodies coming down from Tiger Hill. We used to unwrap those bodies. I said, well, how many, so good, I'm really glad. Tell me how many countries has China got a border with? That's the kind of question which is like competition, success, how many states are there? They couldn't answer it.